Welcome back to Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler, and we are live here in the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. We're here every weekday. We start at 1 o'clock. We go throughout the afternoon, so thank you for joining us. Right now, we are going to be talking about an invasive insect, the emerald ash borer. If you've heard about it before, you know, maybe heard that name, but unfortunately, it has now been found in a couple more places, and we're going to talk about exactly what it is, in case you don't know, where it's been found, and what to do to maybe help mitigate the situation. To do so, we've got Matt from the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife joining us right now. And thank you very much for being here to talk about this and to share the information. And Matt, to start off, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your role there at ODFW? And then also, just to start at the very base level, for people who don't know, could you tell us what an emerald ash borer is?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, my name is Matt Mills, and I'm an emerald ash borer support specialist with the Oregon Department of Forestry's Urban and Community Forestry program. Unlike many parts of the Department of Forestry, my program helps communities plan for their urban forests and help with them with tree care where they live. And my job specifically is to help communities prepare for and understand the threats of emerald ash borer. So emerald ash borer is an invasive beetle. Unfortunately, it comes to us from northeast China. There, it is not a pest. It attacks trees that are already suffering, maybe from drought or fire stress, or already compromised. It made its way to the United States probably around the late 90s, but was discovered outside of Detroit, Michigan in 2002. And unfortunately, our North American ash trees, which are quite common, especially in Oregon, on our riparian habitats, and our urban street trees, which are often European ash trees or other types of Asian ash trees, have never seen emerald ash borer before. So they have little to no resistance to it. Unfortunately, we expect this beetle to kill about 99% of our ash trees here in Oregon. It's been spreading across the East Coast for almost 30 years now, killing hundreds of million ash trees on its way, and we suspect it's going to have the same effect here in Oregon. It was discovered in Forest Grove in 2022, and that is one of the hot spots for emerald ash borers, Washington County. And then in the summer of 2024, it was discovered a few miles east of Woodburn in probably an older population in a natural area. What this beetle does is the larvae will lay their eggs on the outside, or sorry, the adult will lay their eggs on the outside of an ash tree, and those eggs will hatch. The larvae will burrow under the tree, where they start feeding on the layers of the tree that transport nutrients up and down the tree. Eventually, so many larvae are feeding on this tree that it can no longer generate or create new leaves in the spring, and the tree is going to die. And we anticipate most trees to live 3 to 7 years with an emerald ash borer infestation, and some even fewer than that.
Wow, did you say up to 99% of the population?
Yeah, unfortunately, the street trees, the ash trees that we like to plant in our neighborhoods, because they're usually very hardy trees that do well in heat and drought conditions and actually survive our urban climates quite well. We expect about 99% of those ash trees to die because of emerald ash borer. And Oregon ash, our native ash tree, is a very important tree species in our riparian and wetland areas. They are critical for keeping our streams nice and shady so our salmon populations can breed. Once those ash trees start dying, we could definitely see water quality impacts, not only warmer springs, but possibly also additional flooding and channel shifting.
Wow. So when it comes to the emerald ash borer, you know, what are some things that are, I guess let me start with this. Is there anything that can be done to slow them down or stop them?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. We've been trying, our colleagues on the East Coast have been trying to slow the spread of emerald ash borer for the last 30 years. No location has been able to eliminate emerald ash borer. So all we can do is slow the spread of emerald ash borer. So what everybody can do is really think about firewood. This pest lives under the bark of trees as well as many other pest species. And when we transport firewood, when we go camping or when we go out to the woods, we can be bringing that pest species with us. In fact, that's how we think it may have gotten here from the east side of the Rockies. Somebody might have brought infested firewood with them and brought the beetle with them. So what we want to do is make sure we aren't moving firewood around the state. I know that's kind of a foreign idea for Oregonians. I grew up here going camping and bringing firewood with us, but it's really important not to do that because you don't know which pests are hitchhiking along with your firewood. So I like to tell people to buy or harvest firewood within about 10 miles of where they're going to burn it, just to lessen the effect of moving these beetles around. Next thing
So,
people do, oh, go ahead.
oh no, yeah, I was just to reiterate that point. Yeah, so buying, if it's saving, it's like a roadside, somebody's got the firewood there, but if you do that, don't transport it more than 10 miles.
Correct. Yeah. Unless they've kiln dried it or processed it another way, which typically doesn't happen. Those roadside
Yeah.
stands tend to be aged, but raw wood, and
Yep.
moving that around can move around quite a few pests around the state, which
Okay.
can hinder our forests.
Okay. Yeah, I grew up doing the same thing as you were talking too. You take firewood with you, just didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you were going to mention something else.
Yeah, you can also learn the signs and symptoms of emerald ash borer. This pest is really hard to detect, and although do have an extensive trapping program, almost half of our new detections come from people finding it on their own. So we have a website called the OregonEAB.com where anybody can go to and look at the signs, learn what an ash tree looks like. There's keys to identify them, and once you know those keys, they're pretty easy to identify. And then look for signs and symptoms of damage, such as declining thick canopy, epicormic shoots, or bark splits with larval galleries underneath, and the adults will leave very specific D-shaped exit holes in the trees. So if you see those, we really like people to notify the state by going to the Oregon Invasive Species Hotline and making a report. It takes about 2 minutes. We just need some contact information, which is not publicly shared unless you agree to it. We need a picture of what you saw. Pictures are very important. Almost 60% of hotline reports don't have pictures, and we have a hard time following up on those. And then a really good location of where you saw it, whether it's a GPS or street address. So those three things can really help us understand how EAB is spreading throughout the state.
So should everybody, if you do have ash trees, say in your front yard or in your neighborhood, should everybody just be kind of continuously or every now and then taking a look at them to look for those kinds of signs?
Yeah, especially if it's in your front yard, you're heading out each day. Just watch the tree, and if you start seeing that the canopy is having fewer and fewer leaves each year, it's time to just take a closer look and look for those exit holes. If you do have a tree in your front yard, it will probably get infested with emerald ash borer at some point. So it's time to start planning what you want to do with that tree. If it's a high value tree that you really want to keep, maybe it provides a lot of shade for your house, or your kids really like climbing in it. Start talking to a professional arborist about treating that tree to protect it from emerald ash borer. Unfortunately, these treatments aren't a one-time thing. They need to be repeated every 1 to 2 years, but they're very effective at protecting trees from emerald ash borer and are about 95% or more effective and pretty cost effective as well. Now, if it's a smaller tree or a tree that isn't in great health, but it could potentially fall on your house or on your car or your sidewalks, you might also want to talk to about an arborist about removing and replacing that tree if it's not a good option to treat it. Unfortunately, these ash trees will get infected with emerald ash borer, and just a matter of time.
Yeah, you're talking about the time, going back to what you mentioned about with the streams and ash trees, in the natural landscape. How long do we have before that really starts affecting things like that?
Well, that's really going to depend on how much people are spreading this pest around. On its own, it can travel as usually about 2 to 4 miles a year, but sometimes it can travel up to 10 miles a year. But how it makes big jumps is through people transporting firewood. There's been some modeling done to predict the spread of emerald ash borer on its own without human help, and suspect it could be all the way to the southern Oregon border onto California in as much as 20 years.
Wow. Okay. So definitely an issue, and really it sounds like limiting the spread or slowing the spread down is the best way.
Yeah,
that we
and we
can.
want to slow the spread to give other communities a chance to plan for what they want to do with their urban ash trees, and give natural land managers an opportunity to start underplanting their ash forests with other species of tree. So those species can start growing in and building out a canopy, and then when the ash do die, that forest ecosystem function is still maintained.
Well, Matt, for people who want to find out more, you mentioned the website, and I just want to reiterate that for everybody of where they can go and what they should do when they see this.
Yeah, that's OregonEAB.com. We like to think of it as our one-stop shop for everything EAB. You can learn about the beetle, what it looks like, and the damage it does. You can also learn about what your treatment options are, whether you want to remove or replace a tree or treat it, or even do nothing if it's in a place where it's not going to become dangerous. We also have a web map that shows all of the known infested trees throughout the state, as well as guidelines for when you should start taking action to protect or remove your trees.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing all of this information. So important to get that out to everybody, especially as we're getting into camping season. And, transporting firewood everywhere. So yeah, definitely a good thing to know all around. So thank you so much for being here on Fox 12 Now.
Yeah, thanks for letting me stop by and talk about my favorite pest. Y'all have a good day.
All right, thanks. And for everybody watching, we are live streaming here. Depending if you are watching live or after the fact, you can check out these videos on the Fox 12 Oregon app under the Fox 12 Now tab or on our YouTube channel. But if you are watching live, we've got plenty more here this afternoon. We do need to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more Fox 12 Now.